Hello again. Welcome back to Asgard, and welcome to just a kind of a quick video covering. It's been requested by a few people, and I have been planning on doing a few of these as progress goes, with the mod pack that I'm working on. And actually where I'm at right now, this is kind of like my little workshop where I'm like working on things. And you'll see some signs here. These are related to various knowledge tiers and knowledge trees, which we'll get a little bit into that in this video. But I wanted to make this video to kind of go over some of the stuff that we've been working on, and not everything, but some of the stuff that we've been working on, some of the concepts behind the mod pack, and then later videos, it's not going to be like a daily or even weekly video for this necessarily, but periodically as progress goes with the mod pack that we've been working on, I'll update you guys. So at the time of recording this, I'm actually working on the next big update, which will be like the first update that my testers have access to is basically just the Between Lands. Then they got a little small update that was a little bit of the stuff that was after Between Lands. But I'm actually working on the next big update, which is a lot of overworld stuff, a lot of overworld tweaks as far as mob spawns, a lot of overworld progress stuff, progress related and everything, and kind of getting into the actual mod pack, because whenever you start the mod pack, you actually start out, these are subject to change, by the way, this is just a lot of placeholder stuff here, but you actually start out in the Between Lands, for those of you that don't know, and this is fairly all done. I do have a couple tweaks to do and a little bit of stuff to put in here, but for example, like you start in the Between Lands, and the Between Lands starting out is fairly untweaked as far as recipe goes. There's a little bit of tweaked recipes, but once you hit this point, it's pretty much all tweaked after that point. Also the necklaces and stuff, tweaked recipes there, and a little bit of tweaking, but I wanted to keep the Between Lands fairly normal, and that's because you start out in the Between Lands with 5 HP or 5 hearts. So I didn't want to force you to have to go through tweaked recipes. I will say there is one thing that is changed, and that is if you take a look at let's see, Weedwood planks, and I don't actually think this is in the version that the testers have right now, but it is implemented now, and will be in the next one. You actually have to use an axe to break your logs down. You get 3 planks per log. If you punch them, and this is actually a better with add-ons feature, and I did some adjusting and stuff, but if you punch your wood, you're just going to get a couple planks. You don't actually get the log versions. But as the pack progresses, you get more and more ways to process that to where you're getting up to about 8. I think 8's going to be the cap. That's where it's at right now. 8 planks per wood. So you actually end up getting pretty high yields on that. But for those of you that don't know, well, let's talk about the Between Lands first. I'm totally going to get sidetracked in these videos, but and I might do some dev streams. I've actually had a request for that. It all depends on, actually, at the time of recording this, I talked to the internet company and finally got a hold of people that seemed like they cared a little bit. And as of today, at the time of recording this, so it'll be like yesterday, for the time, probably whenever you're watching this, but the internet speed seems to be better, like a lot better. Like, it was fixed for like about a week, a couple weeks ago, but then it crapped out again. But now it's like really fast, like about what I'm paying for, So I'm hoping that they fixed it, but we'll see. They said it was a code word errors that were all up in my business. I don't know. But anyways, going through the Between Lands, like I said, it's fairly untweaked because you don't have a lot of health starting out. You can make a weirding gadget for chunk loading. And the Between Lands, most of these quests have all the text, which is going to kind of guide you through. If you're new to the Between Lands, it's going to kind of help guide you through the quests and stuff like that. This covers everything from alchemy to breeding animals and growing crops, and even the automated sludge farms is in here. This has a really high item count, but that's because it literally takes like a couple minutes. If you set this up right, Literally doesn't take very long to get that much stuff. But anyways, Between Lands, like I said, is fairly untweaked until you hit this point. Of course, it kind of bridges off here, so if you want to keep doing Between Lands stuff, you can. And it is highly suggested that you do. But at this point, you need to make your advanced crafting table, and this is where the tweaked recipe stuff starts. And you go through a little bit of blood magic, and you actually, before you can leave the Between Lands, you have to fight the 2 main bosses from Between Lands, and you also have to spawn a wither and kill a wither in the Between Lands. So, fun stuff. It is very doable, especially if you get into the alchemy side of Between Lands. If you guys have seen my series, like on SevTech, you know that alchemy in Between Lands is super, super powerful. It's super, super powerful. So anyways, it's a bit of a chore because, of course, you can't get soul sand and wither skeletons naturally in the Between Lands. So you have to, you know, go about getting that stuff. And then you also have a few quests here, which the equipment and stuff's probably going to get tweaked a little bit. But for example, you have, say, Lurker Slayer. You have to kill 200 lurkers, which sounds like a lot, but these tasks, a lot of these tasks, they're kind of like big goals to kind of work towards throughout the process of the game, because after you leave Between Lands, it doesn't mean you're done with the Between Lands. You know, you're going to have to come back here. And it's going to be the same for the various dimensions. But these do reward pretty powerful things like unbreakable lurker skin armor, which is pretty nice. You know, lurker skin is great if you're going underwater, and I will say that you're going to have some underwater encounters that you'll want lurker skin armor for. It would be really, really helpful anyways. And having unbreakable versions where you don't have to worry about the durability is very, very nice. And then there's even like, well, that's the lurker skin helmet, but for example, the sludges, you get an unbreakable sludge slicer. So, of course, it's very, very useful. But there's various rewards here that are fairly powerful, and you can get those if you take the time to, you know, 500 whites. That's actually not that bad, though, because if you know the tower boss, you tend to kill probably a good 50 fighting that boss. So, it's actually not that bad. But also, there are rewards for, I haven't fully implemented them, but for collecting various things. So, music discs and the lore tabs. And there's actually a way to get, you know, I had the issue on SevTech where I kept getting the same ones. There's ways implemented so that you can convert them into the ones that you actually need. And then we also have right here, these are some relic pieces, which the enchants on these will probably get adjusted a little bit before the pack sees release, but this was just kind of a placeholder, and then I figured, well, I'll see once I tweak the overworld, how OP is this armor going to be, because it's meant to be good if you get it before going into overworld, if you actually take the time to go for it, and it'll be pretty solid armor for, you know, a little while through the overworld, but it's not going to be the end-all, be-all armor or anything like that. But, for example, we have, like, Greaves here, and they will get lore tags added to them. But you can see this one has Aqua Affinity, Iron Wall 3, and it's unbreakable. Which, unbreakable, you know, I love unbreakable armor. And because I want to reward somebody that takes the time to do the effort, because it's 21 blocks of Valenite, 3 field jars of Armanis, 3 Nether Stars, 3 Life Crystals. Very, very expensive. You also have, like, these boots here, which are upgraded. They are the upgraded advanced rubber boots, whatever, the Marsh Runner boots. So it's got Protection 4 and Depth Strider 3. Of course, it's only +1 armor on those, but it is really, really good if you're going through the Between Lands and you don't have the ring that lets you hover. But anyways, this little section here is fairly done all the way up to leaving. All the text and stuff is in here. This has been, you know, I've had people playing this, and we fixed some bugs. There was actually a period, the first, like, I fixed it pretty quick after the very first version went up, because I had to do some config changes, but there was a major issue where they spawn in the Between Lands, and of course you don't have very much health. And there was Stymphalian birds and Lycanites mobs and all these, like, really bad things spawning in the Between Lands, and when you only have 5 health, it's not great. It's not great to have. So there was not any Lycanites mobs spawning in the Between Lands anymore, but I did fix that. But so anyways, yeah, Between Lands, it's a lot of Between Lands and then getting into blood magic. That's the main things that you're going to be doing here. And most things in this pack, if you take a look at Returning Home, this is where the pack really starts to kind of open up, I think. So whenever you first get done with the Between Lands, your first goal is to make your Antique Atlas, your compass, your campfire, your flint and steel. This is kind of just for fun. I tossed that in there. But compass, this, you don't by default have, of course, Antique Atlas. That's going to be your primary mapping system, not Journey Map. Journey Map's overused, and Antique Atlas is just more cool because you kind of want to like hold on to your atlas, and it's valuable and all that stuff. But you're going to have to make the Traveler's Tools. What's that mod called that adds the info accessories? You're going to want to craft these because that's going to give you right up there at the top left, you can get your XYZ coordinates, your direction, and all that stuff, which will be very, very important. Very, very important, both of these. But then you can also get a biomalyzer so you can see the biomes that you're in. You can get a depth meter so you can see your depth. And then for backpacks and advanced storage and stuff like that, I'm actually using Better Chests mod. A great mod if you've never played around with it. It's an excellent mod. And it just adds a ton of really nice stuff. Now, some of it is disabled because this pack is not a tech pack. I'll go ahead and say that. It is not a tech pack. There is tech, but it's not a tech pack. And we'll get into that here in just a minute. But, so you are going to have better backpacks, and these are very, very good. These are very, very good. There's some really awesome, there's some awesome upgrades. And actually, while we're talking about better backpacks, let's go ahead and pull up, or better chests. I keep calling it better backpacks, but I've actually disabled a lot of the stuff, and some of this other stuff might get disabled. We'll see. But for example, there is an upgrade called the feeding upgrade, and what you do is you put that on a portable backpack, or or a backpack, or a portable. This is one really, really nice thing. You can make portable barrels that hold. I mean, it's basically like storage drawers, but they're portable, so they can hold stacks of a given thing and large amounts of them. So this feeding upgrade you can put on your backpack or your portable barrel, and it's going to feed you constantly from that. But the feeding upgrade is gauged to be more of not necessarily an in-game thing, because it can actually be obtained well before even late game. But it is designed to be kind of a height of farming advancement, because farming and stuff is also gauged behind, or locked behind, knowledge tiers, which we'll get into in just a second. But for example, if you want to see one of the later game, I added this just kind of for fun to go ahead and have it. But the feeding upgrade does require a large variety of foods, and a lot of these are like the top tier stuff. You've got some nether stars on toast in there. You got your infused wood planks, which does make it a little bit later into the pack, because Astral Sorcery is a little bit later into the pack. But it's not super late if you want to, if you want to get this. But I didn't want food to be trivial, so you get the feeding upgrade and just fill it full of junk food and you're done. But there's quite a variety of food here. You're going to have to get to where you're actually crafting the top tier foods and some of the really, really good foods in order to use that. And this pack does have Spice of Life Carrot Edition. So you get buffs. Like I said, you start at 5 hearts, but then you end up getting, I can't even remember how many, but it goes up to 800 eaten foods with variable hearts that kind of scale up in difficulty every so often. So it does go up to 800 eaten foods, which is very much possible because Pam's Harvest Craft alone contains almost 700 foods, or maybe over 700. I'm not for sure. But then you have quite a few other mods like that add food and stuff, So it may even get bumped up to 900, we'll see. Because I think 900 is actually possible. But so if you want to take the time to really dive into agriculture, like I said, it is gated and has its own quest lines and stuff like that are tied to it. But I want there to be rewards for people that really like farming and really enjoy cooking. I will say I haven't done it yet, but I've got to go through and adjust a lot of Pam's Harvest Craft recipes, and we'll get into that here in a minute. Some of them are going to be slightly adjusted. So I've written... It's my first pack for like public release. I used to make packs just for my use and stuff, but my first pack for public release, and going through and tweaking all these recipes is crazy, which you'll understand whenever we get to the tech part. I've spent so long on tech already, and I've barely even scratched the surface. But then you also have some quests here like the Astacor carts. I love these things. And so there's a quest here to get one of those and a saddle so that you can hook your horse up to a cart and pull it around, because the first part of this pack, if you hadn't guessed, the first part of this pack is kind of nomadic after you leave the Between Lands, because you have to actually go to a specific place in the world that always spawns a specific, XYZ coordinates. So you need to have your compass, and you need to have the ability to travel and not get caught outside at night and have to dig a hole, because that's no fun. So what you do is you have your cart for travel, you have your storage, you have your XYZ coordinates here, you have your map. But then I absolutely love this mod, and it's not used enough. There's nomadic tents that you can craft, and you actually get to set up these tents. And for example, let me just grab, I'm going to grab a large tent. Then I'm going to grab the super tent mallet just to show you guys this. But for example, if I toss this down, okay, but for example, if we come over here and we toss this down, this is a small one. But I've actually got to adjust this because I didn't think about it. And I did my testing with just the small ones because I didn't have to tear them up. But it actually doesn't register correctly if it's crafted in the advanced crafting table. So I'm going to adjust the crafting recipes for that. That's fine. I'll do that. But anyways, if you set this up, now normally if you have the standard hammer, you're going to have to actually go through and right-click a few times, and it's going to take a little bit of durability damage if you do that. And you're going to have to basically build it, but once you get the super tent mallet, which I made it pretty quick so that you don't have to just keep doing that every night. But if you just right-click, it's going to build the whole structure, and then you can right-click the door and you can enter the yurt. And, oh yeah, I've got advanced darkness on in the pack, so, but I also have dynamic light, so if you just hold a torch. But you can see we have just a very small yurt. Now these end up getting decent size. I think they're like a 9x9 if I recall. But you can put chests and stuff in here, and you can store items. And then if you come out, like if you put some chests in here and stuff, and store your stuff, then you leave. You can either walk through the door or right click. Either one works. You right click the door. It's going to pull the yurt up, and it's going to keep everything in it. And then you can travel a little bit more, and then whenever it's nighttime, you can set up your yurt again. So that's how that works. And by the way, a lot of the ores you see spawning, these are actually forestry ores. These aren't enabled. They don't spawn. They were just spawned before I changed that config. So just a heads up there. But yeah, so there is quite a few nomadic options. So, especially if you come out of the Betweenlands and you're like really far from where you're supposed to go, you have options for portable housing and portable storage. And of course, the Asgaard cart has a lot of storage in it as well. And I just kind of wanted to have like that nomadic feel, like, okay, I've got to get to this place, right? So anyways, you're going to travel to where you're actually going, which is going to be the quest hub. And that's where I've spent a lot of time working. And we'll pop over there. I'll give you a quick sneak peek of the quest hub at the end of the video. But that's where the mod stages and stuff kind of start opening up. And basically, this pack will feature game stages, which I absolutely love that in SevTech. But it's kind of a little bit different than it was in SevTech. You don't just go through and you unlock Age 1, Age 2, Age 3, Age 4, Age 5. Instead, the way it works is you do certain quests for NPCs. Like, for example, one of the first ones that you're going to do after you get out, it's a quick quest. It actually doesn't require anything that you don't already have, because it just requires an item that you got from the Betweenlands. But you're going to get tomes, which contain, I turn it to day there, you're going to get tomes which contain knowledge from various quest givers. This pack does have custom NPCs, which you'll see. And so you have a quest hub, and there's going to be other places where you have to go and do quests for later on, but the basic knowledge stuff will be based in the quest hub. So for example, if you unlock, say, the first rank of wizardry, which will be like your first thing that you do, you're going to get access to basically the novice spells. So you'll have access to these, and you can craft these, and these will not drop from mobs. They will not come from chests. They are completely handcrafted, and they do get progressively harder. These first spells are easy. They are very, very cheap to craft. A book, a reagent based on the spell. So example, freeze is ice. Magic missile is an arrow. I've got to fix that. I didn't realize that was... I'll remove that here in a minute. I didn't realize that one had a recipe. I was just going through, like, because most of them don't have recipes, Ignite is flint and steel. You're going to need a magic crystal, and then you're also going to need to make this magical book, which these do have durability. You can craft it like this. It's slightly expensive if you do that, because they only have about 50 durability, and I've set it up so these novice books, these take 5 durability off your magical book whenever you craft with it. But you can actually craft this a little bit easier if you make an altar. This is actually from the Runestones mod. If you make an altar, one of these right here, and have the amount of XP that you need, and use a book on this altar here on a full moon. Okay, so it's a little bit more involved that way. Of course, decently early into the pack, you can actually get, of course, the blood magic imperfect runestone, so you can change knights if you want to craft it that way, or if you have lots of magic crystals, you can craft it, you know, the manual way. Most of the stuff I've been implementing a couple different ways that you can do things depending on like how far you've progressed with different mods, and you know, because you're kind of at a point after you get the wizardry stuff, you can choose wherever you want to go. You can go into blood magic, you can go into elven magic, which is the first stage is mainly just early Britannia. You can go into blood magic, you can go into soul magic, which I actually separated that out from blood magic, so that's going to be your Tartaric gem stuff, but it's also going to be your mob spawner systems, which is like Soulless, is the mod that I'm using for mob spawners. It's very customized, so you're not going to be mining and doing all that stuff with Soulless. It doesn't have the fossils and all that. But that's going to be your mob spawn system. And also some of silent gems. There's no Tinker's Constructs. You instead have Silence Gems, which I personally like a lot more. And so some of that stuff is tied into souls, but it's tied all over the place, really. But then you can also go into farming if you want to get into the farming stuff. And for example, I've got, these aren't 100% done, but this is actually decor stuff. So actually decor stuff, we have, let's see, there's Ferdinand's Flowers, there's Earthworks, there is Underground Biomes, which I actually have the Underground Biomes World Gem disabled, because it can be a little bit laggy when you're loading worlds, especially with the other stuff that I've got going on. So it's mainly there for decor purposes. So you'll be able to craft the different blocks and stuff like that, because it was causing just a lot of lag whenever we were using it. So that was disabled. Twilight Forest, you have that. The dimension for Twilight Forest, you may have heard me say this before, the dimension is disabled. You cannot go to the Twilight Forest, but it is there for resources for our purposes. It's also there for building purposes, for building resources. So if you like the building blocks, I personally love the building blocks from Twilight Forest. But you won't be going to the dimension. You will still see the bosses, but they're going to be customized, which we'll get into that here in just a second. There's also Chisel, there's X-Tones, there's Corel Pillars and Corel Pillars Chisel Extension, there's Unlimited Chisel Works, there is Little Tiles, there is Building Gadgets, or Building Tools, I mean. There's also Builder's Guides, so if you like making circles and stuff like that in World, that's available. This is just a quest to get Formation and Conversion 1 from Astral Sorcery early, because Astral Sorcery is a bit later into the pack. So I did make that available earlier on. There's Fairy Lights. There's the Fancy Lamps mod, which this is actually really cool. It adds kind of just some magical type lights. So for example, there's like that, and it does emit light and has like little particle effects and stuff like that. It's a really cool mod. There is Terraquis, that's in the pack. There is Cathedral and Chinese Workshop. These mods are absolutely wonderful. If you've never seen them, sadly they don't show up in a lot of packs, but they are awesome if you're building stuff. They're kind of specialized little mods that add some things. Like, for example, Cathedral adds, you know, gargoyles. It also adds these kind of like dwarven blocks, which will go good with embers and stuff like that. It adds just kind of a variety of things. You've got stained glass windows. You've got like dwarven metal bars with like different looks to them. You have dwarven doors. So that's available. Chinese Workshop. But Chinese Workshop it's another specialized building mod that is Chinese, kind of Chinese themed and Asian themed building materials. So if you're building something, you know, that kind of fits into that, it's like the perfect mod, which you'll actually see a bit of that whenever I give you a sneak peek of the Quest Hub. There's also Architecture Craft. There is Catwalks mod, which I absolutely love Catwalks. It's been around for a while. It is updated to 1.12. There's some new features. It's in the pack. Even though the pack's not really tech heavy, Catwalks is still kind of fun. There's Platforms. There is Melissa's Doors. There is DecoCraft. There is Bibliocraft. This is actually from Treasure. There's actually one that spawned right over here. This is from Treasure. But this mod features some really cool chests and stuff like that. So for example, there's like this chest. Pretty neat. And then there's also like tombstones. Plus there is fog, which is kind of a cool block. So you can put fog on the ground. It is kind of weird whenever you're trying to break it, because you basically just place a block over it. But there's also wither fog and poison fog, which we'll be using quite a bit. And there's different, what's cool is the chests, we can lock them with a lock, with different locks, and then you have to get the corresponding key, and each chest can have up to 3 different locks on it, and it's a lot of fun. It's actually quite a bit of fun. So that's in here, and I've got it in here because you'll be able to build, you know, some of the stuff like fog and stuff. And then there is, actually this is the Decocraft quest. This is Landlust is the quest. So this adds just kind of like, it adds that little campfire, which is kind of cool because you can actually put this on the ground and you can light it on fire. So there you go. But it adds a lot of like really neat things. Just kind of, it's got some a little bit more modern things, but it does add some really cool chandeliers and lanterns and different things, and just lots of really cool stuff. So I'm definitely going all out with building mods. You know, you got a lot of options here if you enjoy building. So, and then what's nice is the mod pack isn't even what it's like 160 something mods, I think, is all that it is. It's actually not a very, well, it's got a lot of content, but it's not super amount of mods. So then there's a quest here for cleaning, or a quest line here for cleaning up the clutter, which I'm still working on. This is going to be basically your auto storage, auto crafting, dense storage. You know, it's going to have compartments from bennies in here. It's going to have your better chest. It's going to have your drawers. It's going to have your blood magic nodes. It's going to have, actually, we should take a moment and talk about item storage and auto crafting. There is no AE2. There is no refined storage. There is no RF tools. Auto crafting is still intended and it's expected in the later stages. Early into the pack, I'm kind of taking it easy. I'm not just straight out the gate like, oh, crazy recipes, you know. I'm kind of like easing you into it. Like Between Lands, not super tweaked, and then you get into kind of tweaked recipes, but they're not overly excessive. As you start moving up through the tech, which we'll take a quick look at, this video might actually be 2 parts, but as you start moving into the tech, you do start getting into some very involved stuff that you're going to want to automate. But to automate and kind of do your auto processing and auto crafting, you'll be using Corporea. And I know a lot of people shudder at the sound of Corporea. I do have a lot of add-ons for Corporea. So you're going to have wireless access. You're going to have, it's going to have, for example, you've got the crafty crates for extended crafting. So you can do the advanced, the elite, the ultimate. So you can auto craft through the Corporea system for that stuff. And it's going to have quite a few things that just make Corporea a little bit better and a little bit more. It's going to be pretty much on par with AE2 and refined storage. It just takes a little bit more effort to set up, and it's a little bit more fun to set up, because the AE2 and refined storage rush just kind of gets old, I think. And plus, it's more of a magical based mod pack. So without any kind of RF generation systems, you know, it kind of just goes with the territory. But and then here you have where I've started working on the crop section. These are basically collect everything quests. So you're going to have all the different seeds from Pam's. You've got Fluffy Puff seeds from Silence Gems. You got all your vanilla crops and so on. So you pretty much seeds for all the things. Then you're going to have over here saplings for all the things and flowers for all the things. And then you can also get the plow from Asgaard, which will help out quite a bit. And you have access to the horsepower stuff. So horsepower is a major part of your early tech. This pack is actually going for more immersion tech and more, because it's kind of a fantasy type pack, and machines just don't fit a fantasy style, I don't think. Plus, I get tired of, you know, one block magical machines. They're just boring to automate, because everybody knows how to plug up an input, an output, and some power. It's nothing to it, you know. Then we have this is the Wizardry quest line, which is going to feature Electroblob's Wizardry, which is actually already all plotted out. There's quests here for collecting all the different spell books, and quests for making all the different wands, which these are fully craftable. And then quest for making the armor, which this is craftable, but it will not be craftable until you go to the nether. It's all gauged for stuff that you're going to gather in the nether. It's nothing like wither skeleton skulls. Well, you can actually craft wither skeleton skulls pretty early, but it's nothing like that, but it is gauged behind the nether. And this, just making the main piece, is going to be gauged behind Botania and a little bit of tech that you're going to have to get into before you can make that. But it also features runecraft, and it features wizardry. So this pack has both options available. It has wizardry, which is a really fun mod if you've never played around with it. This is basically spell generation, spell creation. So kind of like the Thaumcraft system where you open up a table and you make your spells, or even prior to that, Ars Magica and stuff. It does feature that. So, and runestones is kind of cool. I've actually buffed it quite a bit in this pack, where you can set down runestones and they'll give you buffs, you know, if you activate them, and then you eventually get portable ones where you can activate the buffs. A lot of that is pretty gated, but fairly early on you can make your first basic buff ones. So, and then there's a Botania quest line,